what's happening with preparations for a supposed cyber attack that could take down even, energy grids?
Okay, so they've been talking about cyber attack on the energy grids and all this stuff in the media for a while, and cybersecurity companies, many of which are tied to intelligence, have been talking about that for a while too. But if you want to look at people like the World Economic Forum and their partners, they talk about cyber attacks too, but it's almost entirely focused on the financial system. And some of the biggest banks in the world are part of that. And it's basically, they have a plan. We don't know what it is. But they have a plan for what happens if there is a cyber attack on the financial system and how all the big banks are going to respond with the government, because this is basically the biggest banks in the world. And it's the UK government, Israel's government, and the US government, including the FBI and Department of Justice, all part of this thing. It's called Partnership Against Cybercrime. So, think about it this way. And a lot of people in the finance world pretty much know this. The economic collapse is basically an inevitability at this point, like a mathematical inevitability. The question is just like when it's going to collapse. And so obviously the people in power know that, and they want to manage that collapse to, herd people into CBDCs. At least we can see that whole picture now. Maybe a couple of years ago that wasn't so obvious, but now it's pretty obvious.
Right.
So they want to manage the collapse in such a way where they can do that, right? So part of this is how are they going to bring it all down, but absolve themselves of blame? They don't want to repeat 2008 where there was Occupy Wall Street and civil unrest against the banks. They want to have another boogeyman.
It's a mathematical certainty that the world's financial system is going to collapse, and the global elites are going to use it to usher in CBDCs and destroy online privacy. That's the message out from investigative journalist and author Whitney Webb. Whitney believes that 2024 is going to be an extremely disruptive year. The World Economic Forum is hinting at the possibility of a global cyber catastrophe, which Whitney believes is going to be used as a power grab. What is the end goal? Destroy online privacy and introduce central bank digital currencies, all with the purpose of gaining more control. However, make sure to stick around to the end of the video because Whitney makes the case for holding Bitcoin and cryptocurrency as a way to stay one step ahead. However, with the introduction of BlackRock and other financial institutions to Bitcoin in the form of the new Bitcoin ETFs, perhaps now that is also under attack. Also guys, only a small percentage of my viewers are actually subscribed. If you enjoy staying up to date with finance content,
we have to decentralize, right? And at the local level, we have to start building parallel structures to the stuff going on. I'm sure you guys, you talk about this, CBDCs, once that comes out, it's like game on, like you join that system, you are signing away, your freedom for good, pretty much. So something has to happen before then, or people have to prepare before then, and have some sort of parallel structure in place. There's manufactured energy and food crises on the horizon in the US and a lot of the world. There have to be parallel structures in place for you to feed your family and have energy for your family. And Americans have to get started that right away. Obviously, the Biden administration is not going to solve your problems. And even if you manage to, I doubt it will solve for your family. And Americans have to get started that right away. Obviously, the Biden administration is not going to solve your problems. And even if you manage to, I doubt it will solve anyone's problems either, So it's like, it's up to us. We have to, stop waiting for some white knight at the ballot box and take accountability and responsibility for our own lives and make resilient communities. And that's the way to win. Okay, so I have crypto mainly because, financial censorship has been a big problem for independent media, especially in the past couple of years. So I like to have, diversity of assets, I guess you could say. Like, I don't want to have all my money in cash in the bank or something like that. Depending on what could happen, because there's a lot of different risks and a lot of different ways things could play out. So I do have crypto, but I also I don't promote it because I don't feel like it's my place to tell people how to spend their money and what to do. In my opinion, though, for me personally, I think the best investment I can personally make is in land right now, because I can have my own house. I can, at least in Chile, have like off-grid energy pretty easily and cheaply. Water, grow my own food. I can take care of my family myself and be like self-sufficient. For me personally, like that's the best investment for me to make right now. So, I've listened to a lot of arguments about Bitcoin and stuff. And I mean, if you're all in for it, that's cool. If you're not, that's cool. I'm not going to try and like convince people one way or the other, because I feel like, again, it's not my place, because a lot of the work I do is aimed at showing, where the power really lies and identifying the problems so that, other people can talk about how to solve it. I have some ideas about like solutions that I think could work, but, the bulk of my work is about trying to identify, the state of affairs, where the roots of the problems lie. So, because we can't solve any problems unless we know what the problem is. What I like about the Bitcoin people is that they're like thinking about ways to break out of the system.
Yes.
And like, regardless of whether you believe Bitcoin will do that or not, I like that there is a lot of energy and time being thought into thinking about how to get out of the current system. Yeah. And there's a lot of people that aren't doing that. So I just tend to get along really well with like Bitcoiners. So I guess I would say that the CBDC system is like hugely unattractive. And the only way they can get people to adopt it is by making it very difficult to use anything else other than a CBDC, whether that means illegalizing all other forms of money or something more extreme, or reducing the value of everything else to zero or near zero. I mean, they have been spending a lot of time thinking about how to do all of these things to get everyone hooked on CBDC. So like I said, I think you have to be a couple steps ahead of them. And ultimately, I think, land is a good way to do that. I don't have any illusions that I'm like actually private and they can't see what I'm doing. I mean, this stuff is like really extreme anyway, the type of technology that they have. Well, I mean, obviously I have kids. Yeah. So, I want my kids to be fine. But as I see it, fear, it weakens you. And so, there's a reason why with the COVID stuff and everything else, it's been a lot of fear on the population. People who are afraid are easy to control.
Yep.
And to paraphrase Dune, one of the most famous science fiction books. I guess they're making it into a movie. It's whatever. But anyway, the book, right, is pretty old. Dune, one of the most famous science fiction books. I guess they're making it into a movie. It's whatever. But anyway, the book, right, is pretty old. And there's a line in there that says something like, fear is the mind killer. It's very true. I mean, if you're afraid all the time, they're going to take you for a ride. They're going to take you to town and you're not going to win. So the only way to beat these people is to literally have zero fear of them. Yeah, I mean, a lot of stuff went on. So basically, Klaus Schwab is sort of like a pupil of Henry Kissinger, who, for people that don't know, Secretary of State under Nixon, you may know him best for, but he's really just a part of the internationalist camp, sort of a stooge, I guess you could say, for the Rockefeller family, who are tied to a lot of things, including, the Trilateral Commission, which basically pushes more or less for global government, and the Council on Foreign Relations and a lot of other influential think tanks. Anyway, the World Economic Forum was basically created as a think tank. It later styled itself as the premier promoter of public-private partnerships, as they're often called today. But what they really are the merging of the state with corporations, which historically has been defined as fascism. And I don't really see it as anything different than that. So over time, the WEF has basically promoted public-private partnerships everywhere, and essentially as far as the power
preparations for a supposed cyber attack that could take down even energy grids.
Okay, so they've been talking about cyber attack on the energy grids and all this stuff in the media for a while, and cybersecurity companies, many of which are tied to intelligence, have been talking about that for a while too. But if you want to look at people like the World Economic Forum and their partners, they talk about cyber attacks too, but it's almost entirely focused on the financial system. And some of the biggest banks in the world are part of that. And it's basically, they have a plan. We don't know what it is. but they have a plan for what happens if there is a cyber attack on the financial system and how all the big banks are going to respond with the government, because this is basically the biggest banks in the world, and it's the UK government, Israel's government, and the US government, including the FBI and Department of Justice, all part of this thing. It's called Partnership Against Cybercrime at the World Economic Forum. And I've written about it pretty extensively. If you go to my website and you look up like WEF, Partnership Against Cybercrime, you'll find my two-part series on all this stuff. Because a lot of people have probably heard about Cyber Polygon, which is like the WEF's big simulation for a cyber attack, but that's like an annual exercise. So they've done several of those, but then again, it's mainly again with banks. So it's co-hosted by a subsidiary of Sberbank, which is one of Russia's biggest, I think actually Russia's biggest bank, partially state-owned, which is kind of ironic when you consider Russian hackers, and all the concern about that. And, the US government's participating in Cyber Polygon, for example. Like, why aren't they concerned about Russian hackers then? I mean, it's a joke. So anyway, it's mostly banks. It's banks, cybersecurity companies.
Like, should people be worried about their accounts?
So, I mean, think about it this way. And a lot of people in the finance world will pretty much know this. The economic collapse is basically an inevitability at this point, like a mathematical inevitability. The question is just like when it's going to collapse. And so obviously the people in power know that, and they want to manage that collapse to, herd people into CBDCs. At least we can see that whole picture now.
Yeah.
Maybe a couple of years ago that wasn't so obvious, but now it's pretty obvious. When you set up, internet connection at your house, the internet service provider links all of your internet traffic to your ID. And in doing so, the government and the signals intelligence arm or intelligence agency of the government then has access to not just everything you're posting and writing online, but also everything you read and consume online.
And everything you buy.
And everything you buy. Totally. I mean, this whole push is completely related to ending financial anonymity and financial privacy as well. It's a completely interrelated thing. And I've done pretty extensive deep dives on this going back to probably like 2021, because it's very tied up with how they're likely to force this regulated internet on the populace, because they're not just going to be like, let's do this now. I mean, people aren't going to go along with it. So they need some sort of event that gets people angry and afraid. And
the national security state. This convergence isn't just about data privacy or market dominance. It's about shaping the narrative and controlling societal perceptions. We're already witnessing the repercussions of this entanglement. The development of AI and its potential misuse is a looming concern. Experts forecast a future where AI's irresponsible deployment could blur the lines between accidents and criminal incidents, making accountability a complex challenge. This echoes Whitney's concerns about the fusion of technology and power structures and its potential to distort reality. In the crypto and blockchain community, we understand the importance of countering these trends. By advocating for and supporting decentralized platforms, we not only challenge the monopoly of big tech, but also promote a digital ecosystem that values transparency and equity. This is not just a technological stance. It's a commitment to a more democratic and open future.
I used to do much videos years ago, and I used to start the video with a meditation, because at that point, lots of work upon the self was the theme. That was actually the theme, right? And through that work, there is something called if you follow theosophy. I'm not a student of theosophy, right? But I'm a student of occult knowledge and occult science, and because of that, I'm able to teach it as well, because it's something that's natural to me. It comes from within me. They have something called the Chela. And the Chela is one that, you see, we hear the word guru, fake guru, this one wants to be a guru, and all this sort of stuff, right? Now, the expression and the definition of the Chela is something that I can resonate with. So can some of you, many of you as well. And the reason is what the Chela is. The Chela is one who's embarked upon this work of being a student, right, to the degree that you have learned, and you actually begin to surrender, and you begin to realize and to recognize the illusion of separation to such an extent that you begin to naturally, from the position of the true self, start to look towards helping others. Yeah, beyond something it's like a way shower, right? Now, that is a scenario that is born about, right, through an expression of selflessness that comes from one who is working upon the shadow. You'll always hear me talking about these same things, because they are the core principle as to why we're in this mess, because of the way that we're in this mess, not because of anything external, like I've been saying for years now, because of the way we think. Now, when one has been working with the shadow for lengthy periods of time, working upon the self, working upon the self is working upon the shadow. The self is the shadow. The expression of the self is the shadow, is an expression of the self. The shadow is brought about by light, right? Light makes the shadow. It's what it does. It creates a shadow. So there's a tree behind me, and it's got a shadow because light. So the shadow is actually illusory, because the shadow is only actually there as a byproduct of the light, right? But because of the paradox that we're in, we are expressing and working from this shadow. So even when we perceive that, oh yeah, I've been doing my shadow work and so on and so forth, we're only operating on a layer of that shadow work. We have not actually integrated that shadow yet, even though we may think we have. And when this process settles in, we now start to recognize the difference between operating from causes and operating from the effects. The narcissist operates from effects. The effects of being insecure, so then it expresses those and projects those effects, right? So one that's integrated the shadow, right, works from the causes. So when you see Christ, he has like a halo around his head. That's an expression of a being who is walking upon the earth that has an expanded toroidal magnetic field around the peak mounting point, the peak, which is the head, right? And through that we begin to recognize causes, and that is why you'll see with the theme with Christ is love thy neighbors and so on and so forth, love your enemies and all that sort of stuff, right? It's not just you just love them for the sake of it. It's a level of compassion that is brought about through suffering, from the suffering of going through the traumatic experiences of recognizing and working with one's own shadow. So I'm going to know my shadow expressions. They don't go, but they're dimmed down. We dim them down like Dim Tim, right? And then we actually are able to command them. And it brings us the subconscious mind forward and allows us to actually think on a deeper level, which is operating with the causal plane now. What is the cause of this? Now, the situation that we're in right now, collectively, is because the shadow is just running riot. So even in our truth movements, the shadow is running riot. So what we do as human beings, and I spoke about this with Cainite Gnostics, and there's a lot going around now about redemption of sin. Robert Sepper's work, I was talking about it a while ago in a video that I did. The guy was interviewing me and I was talking about it, right? And it's a theme, and a theme that I've known about for years. And the Cainite Gnostics, so they go the opposite. We know about this inversion. We call it an inversion, but it's not actually inversion. It's actually them working with a particular force here, which you can do, right? They're working with a particular force. There's two polarities here. So that's how we have chaos magic. So they create this dualism, this schism between the two, because the magicians, the sorcerers, they understand polarity, which is a massive thing that I teach, right? So because they know how polarity works, because they work with it constantly, it means that they are able to step outside. Like, I'll give you an example. There's a guy called Jimmy Savile. One of the things that he said was he's lived a great life, and this guy used to run around doing things for charity, right? Because this is how they understand it more than we do. This is a shame. We need to have much work to do. They understand that they're on the earth plane, which is a lower, denser plane that enables wickedness to happen. I've got a video that's coming up. This is just a really short thing, so I'm not going to go too deeply into that, but I speak about these two polarities to their extent, and the original spiritual practices where religion is based from stems from what I'm speaking about, right? So what he would do is run around and do all these things, but then he was sleeping with dead people. I'm not, obviously, right, yeah. What I'm speaking about is not, I'm not saying these are the things that we do, right? What I'm saying to you is that the extent of polarity, the way that the magnetism works here, allows for extreme evil and extreme good, and a balance of those, right? And all roads lead to Rome. So through the suffering, right, your emotional field, right, and the suffering from that pain actually leads to gain because of the paradoxical nature of things. So they recognize this, and what happens is the beings that walk around here, naturally, the way our minds work is we operate from the effects, and the effects, we don't look at causes, we look at effects, and because of that, evil is allowed to happen here, and people think, oh, they want to ignore it and think it's not really happening like that. Or you might think, oh, no, they're not really going to do this WEF thing, because in actual fact, well, they might do it, but really it could actually be for the causes of good as well. But it's not, it's just for the causes of evil. But it's only when we operate from this shadow work, riding the goat, a lot of these deep occult practices, that we are able to gather the strength, to recognize acts of evil with the causes of evil, and to actually begin to do something about it. So this is just a very short video that I'm doing here now, because like the video I played at the beginning, we have analysts now who are not in our truth movement circles, and they are telling you exactly what's going to go down. Exactly what's going to go down. Yeah, the Bitcoin community is good because it focuses us on the causes. The banking, it focuses on the fact that we need a new monetary system. That's what it focuses upon. Whether or not it's going to do that, it's what it focuses upon. It's what its intention is, and its intention is great. Now, we have a situation here now whereby money is used. Now, money, and I have it written down as well, because I want to get it exactly to how I said it. Right. So the money is used. We think money is just a simple practice, we take it for granted. You have to use it. Many of you have to use it. There's a situation here that's being born now where they're making you poor. And by making you poor, money, it has a metaphysical cord. There's a metaphysical cord attached to your neighbor cord. It's the same with money. Money has a metaphysical cord which is attached to your emotional field, right? Because it is attached to your emotional field, it means when we make you poor, they don't have to touch you. They only have to make you poor. By making you poor, alters your perception of reality, even if you are conscious. Because that's what scarcity does, right? And I went on to say, making beings poor can alter their perceptions and mental strength, right? It can make you give into the movie mirror and fall back to sleep in many ways. It can actually make you fall back to sleep in many ways. So, going back to the beginning of saying about being a jailer, I've been working on ways for several years now on how we can develop abundance outside of that centralized demonic system. And that system has developed a way of making it so, because we don't work with the shadow, so that we actually are ignoring the fact that we are being imprisoned to such an extent that if you do not get land, if you do not get some land, and you do not get a house of your own, you do not become owner of your own stuff, right? You won't be able to use the internet, if you so, to make any money to go and do that. We have until 2025, as I was saying in my videos. This is not one of my private videos. I'm doing this video here now because I'm wanting to let you know that we have ways, not in crypto, we do have that too. We have ways that you can develop an income that you can make anywhere in the world, a self-sustainable way for you to move forward. And what I notice in this conscious community is that we don't like to focus on these things, on the mundane things. That's how we've got into this mess, by the way, because it's only by recognizing that we are in a mess that we can move forward. When we are thinking, oh, we're somehow everybody's waking up, no, and we're all getting forward, that's gonna leave you disappointed, and it's gonna put you into a mental trap where you're gonna perceive something that's not actually really happening. It will take place and it has to take place. And then once it has taken place, this digital prison, once it has taken place, then things can come about. Because the average individual on the street, we don't realize this, because this internet, they're nuts, they're clever. It's giving you a false perception of what is really happening. Where there's people, the average people on the street, they don't really like one another, because you come from a different country and you're a man, you're a woman. This is the social engineering that has been put into place to make that happen. So it's only through love, the expression of the Chela, is only through love, of humanity, that makes me stand here and do this. Because I'm not speaking about for myself, because I've already done that. I've made it so that I can be self-sustainable, right? But we need it for you as well. But at the same time, I still need some money as well, like you do. But when we ignore this is how ignorance works. When we don't look at this shadow aspect, because it's been brought about to us, it festers and it grows. And now we have people online who are conscious, who are begging for money. I've seen it, I see it, begging people for money to help them, because they don't want to have to go to do their job, or they're going to get kicked out from where they live, they're going to get evicted from that, because we're living in this evil scenario. Something has to be done. Something has to be done. We have to be able to grasp the reins of I'll tell you what, it's not even that. We have to be able to face the core is denser matter and say, right, we have to be able to look at it, and we have to crystallize that matter and say, right, this is what we need to do. We need to do something. We need to have action, right? Because the workings of the shadow, like I was just explaining, will operate within the collective consciousness, which will drag you down with it, because the laws of cause and effect are making that happen. Because the average individual is evil. They are evil. Not nice, they're evil. And the reason is, when you go into a shop and you buy something, they perceive that if you don't have that money, then you should starve. Now, that individual that's at the cashier that's doing that, they think that. They think like that. And because they think like that, means that they think in an evil way. And the other thing, which I'm going to into my actual real video about things, is that we don't like to realize that there is something external force that is guiding us. Man hates that. He can't stand it. And the core of what man can't stand are these demon minions that are on the face of this place, right? So the only way at this precise minute now that people are going to get out of that matrix, right now, is with some type of funds. And then you can get your passports or whatever it is. Because next year, right now, in the UK, it's facial recognition. It's already started. They're already trying it, they're doing it. So, making travel, restricting movement and travel. So I use my knowledge and what I know to help others to grow. And I seen something else where someone was saying, oh, it doesn't matter what you know. No. What you don't know will kill you. You will be killed if you don't know things. If you don't know, you will be killed. We need to know. And when we don't know, we feel inferior by those that do know, because we're operating projection from that shadow. So this video that I put out here is about realizing now, and it's about me putting out something that's going to show individuals, give individuals a solid earning that enables them to travel the world freely outside of these, because they are using this money, what you think is money, is a black magic sorcery. Because really, back in Egypt, when they had money, the guy that was counting out the money, was dealing out the money, etc., he had to pass through loads of grades of initiation of himself. He had to remove loads of layers of toxicity and everything. It had to be cleansed to deal with this, because we need to make sure that the person that's giving us this money is of genuine, has a decent heart. It's heart-based and centered within the heart. Not operating from these two polarities, but from within that middle center pole. And that's not happening here. And because that's not happening here, means that you need to take action. So you'll see me putting out something now that's going to give people the opportunity to tap into a market that's worth a bit over $1 billion. Even when you talk about money, so people think, how can you equate talking about because they are using that as a weapon against you. That's what it's come down to. That's what it's come down to. It's come down to the fact that you have the right to supremacy. I can gather all these oranges, right? I can gather them all. There's nothing out here that's going to stop me from gathering all those. If me and you are standing here now, and I gather all these oranges off these trees before you, the lightning is not going to strike me down because I've gathered that lightning before you. It's going to leave you on the floor to starve with no oranges, unless you've done whatever things that you're doing within yourself, right? Yeah, and then it will be given. But if cause and effect, if the laws of this place deem that to be the case, then it's just going to leave you down there with nothing. That's what's happening here right now. So we have to take action for those people who are wherever you are, in whatever cities and all sorts of stuff, with a job and all the rest of it. We have to take action. We have to look at other ways of how we can make abundance for ourselves. Yeah, and then once you've made that abundance, and then you get settled somewhere with your land and whatever else it is, then we can go back to the old way. This is just two things that are happening here. We're having to use polarity again, not just one way. We're having to go one way and work with the other way. We're having to be holistic here and work with the different avenues and angles that are incoming, because there's technology that's also incoming that's going to allow us to gain freedom just through. There's technology incoming now that's going to enable me to share my own insights and my own knowledge, right? To give it to you, for this example, to look at, and for you to gain abundance from that, and me. Yeah. So there's a lot happening here, a lot of technology creating a lot of schisms here, and they are they're hell bent on it. They're going to crack it down. They're going to crack it down, right? So everything is controlled to do with abundance and money. And by doing that, this will alter the perception of the beings that are here. Just like we've seen with what they did before, right? With the needlecraft. It will alter the perception again in a different, not a fear-based one, but one where once the being has been controlled to that degree and extent, then that being will bow down, because they're operating from the shadow. Remember, they don't recognize that there is something above what is being given to them. You don't realize there is a divine light of abundance that if we tune into it, then it will nourish us and it will feed us. But it will only kick in at the last second, once you've already given everything up. But do you have the strength to be able to do that? Do you have the strength to embark upon the new? Take the risk and embark upon the new. The chances are here now. I have one that I'm going to be revealing to people and giving to people. Yeah, and it is solid, and it will give you the ability to make the abundance that you need for yourself and your family without relying upon this system. And what I'll do is that I'll put it on when I show it on What's It. I'll put it on, and then when I put it onto to YouTube, I'll put it on as a description. And then after this, I'm going to go back to doing my usual knowledge. After this, I will go back to doing my usual knowledge with the phenomena, the findings that I have found to do with the way that this place is working, and how it works, and why it is working in the way that it's working, and why you are growing in the way that you are growing, and why that's actually happening to you right now. So that's going to be a good video. So I'll speak to you soon. Much love.